Hello and welcome to Chesapeake Weekly Home Edition. So, our COVID-19 cases here in Chesapeake do not seem to be going away. So, we tell you this not to scare you, not as a fear tactic, simply bringing you the information. That's what we hope to do here on Chesapeake Weekly. And who better to get the facts from than our local COVID-19 expert, Dr. Nancy Welch. She's the director of the Chesapeake Health Department, and she's been working day and night on our city's COVID-19 response ever since this started. I recently got to sit down and have a really interesting interview with her where I learned a lot, and I hope you'll learn a lot from it too. Let's take a look at one piece of that interview right now.
The bottom line is that what we're trying to determine, is it related to testing or transmission? Those are the key differences and key points that have to be considered. If it's related, when you have, well, let's use just a simple example. Say you had a 10% positivity rate out of 100 people. And then next week you're testing 200 people. If there is no increased transmission, in other words, no increase in the amount of the disease, then you're actually going to see a decrease in the percent, okay, because you just have that same number. Or if the transmission is just sort of level and not increasing, you're going to stay at that 10%. But that's not what we're seeing. We are seeing a huge, almost vertical surge.
So you can find the rest of that interview on our YouTube page. That's youtube.com/Chesapeake Television. And remember that your place to go for Chesapeake-specific COVID-19 information is going to be cityofchesapeake.net/COVID-19. There we provide you with the latest information as well as lots of resources and help for all sorts of COVID-19 related incidents. So let's switch gears here a little bit and talk grass. So due to a COVID-19 related impact in the Waste Management Division, they have suspended bulk trash collection through the end of July, and that includes grass clipping. So we need an alternative to bagging those grass clippings, and Jason Brown is the man with all the public works information. So we went to him, and turns out he's got some tips that make yard work a heck of a lot easier. Take a look. Jason Brown, thank you so much for being here with us. As always, you've got all the information we need from Public Works.
Thanks, Liz. We try. It's a lot of information, but it's a lot of good information for our residents.
It is. Your department has such a broad range of activities. We are talking a lot about grass clippings these days and what we can do with them, how we can make the whole cutting our lawn easier, because you actually have some really good tips that are not only easier, but are better for the environment. So take it away.
Absolutely. So as you probably know, if you have a lawn, you want to keep the lawn nice and tidy. It's a point of pride for a lot of homeowners and folks in the neighborhoods to make their place look good. And a part of that is obviously keeping your lawn maintained. So here in Chesapeake, traditionally, you can bag grass clippings and the Public Works Department will help take those off your hands. But you don't have to do that. And in fact, it might be a little bit easier and more environmentally conscious in some cases to not bag those grass clippings into a plastic bag and then put it out to be hauled away by the Public Works Department. So one of the best things you can actually do when it comes to grass clippings is just leave them on your lawn, leave them lay. That may seem a little counterintuitive to folks who for generations have bagged them or removed them, raked them up, and generally put them aside. But generally speaking, depending on the type of grass that your lawn is, grass clippings of about an inch or less can oftentimes be really good for fertilization, and it can get vital nutrients and nitrogen back into your lawn if you just leave those grass clippings where they are. So that's one less step for you when you're out there in the heat, and goodness knows it's been hot here in Chesapeake lately. Just leave those grass clippings out there. Now, the exception to that rule is when you have grass clippings that are particularly long. If you've let the grass get very high, it's longer than an inch or an inch and a half or so. If those grass clippings are too long, you can kind of make a mat of grass that sits on top of the freshly cut grass, and that can cause some problems, not letting enough moisture, light, and nutrients get into that freshly cut grass. But generally speaking, if you maintain your lawn at normal intervals, you can leave those inch or few or less clippings on the lawn, and that actually goes a long way to helping the overall health of your lawn in a very natural and sustainable way. And again, it's one less step for you to have to worry about, one less thing you have to put out on the curb for the public works folks to come pick up and take away. So one of the myths and rumors you hear about grass clippings on your lawn is this phenomenon called thatch. And what thatch is, it's a layer of kind of undecomposed organic matter that builds up between the soil and the surface, and while you're growing vegetation, and in this case, that vegetation is grass. So thatch layers develop when organic matter, i.e. grass clippings, is produced faster than they decompose. So leaving clippings on the lawn, some people think, oh, well, if the clippings if they stack up, it's not going to break down fast enough, and then I'm going to have this degradation in the quality and the growth of my lawn. Not necessarily. Again, going back to where if you have those clippings that are about an inch or less in height, it's not going to be enough of that matter on top of the freshly cut grass to where it's going to inhibit the growth of the grass. And in fact, again, it's going to probably help get some nutrients back into that freshly cut grass and keep it growing. A lot easier of a process too. So I wouldn't worry about thatch unless you've let your grass grow for weeks and weeks and weeks on end, which you should be doing anyway.
Wow, Jason, we get a science lesson from you. We get environmental tips. We get, yard tips. This is amazing. I'm always looking for ways to be lazier when it comes to any kind of work outside in the summer. So I love it. Thank you so much for these tips. We're going to come back to you over the next couple of weeks for some more tips from Public Works, because you guys got everything going on, and we really appreciate everything you and all the men and women who work in your department are doing. So thank you so much.
Anytime. Thank you, Liz.
And he had some other really good tips. So this one I'm super excited about. You can put a layer of grass clippings on top of the soil of your container gardens. So like if you have herbs or tomatoes or green peppers or something growing in some pots, maybe in your backyard, sprinkle some grass clippings on top, and that's going to help moisturize, keep the moisture in your soil, which it's so hot out. We need that these days. I'm personally super excited about that tip. I'm going to go out and do it right after this. Another thought is to pop it in your compost pile. If you've already got a compost pile going, grass clippings are great for that. So great tips as always from Jason Brown in Public Works. Thank you so much. Now, before we leave the topic of grass, we have tons of beautiful parks here in the city, and you never really stop to think about how they stay so pretty. Well, turf management is actually a full-time job, and there's one guy in the Parks, Rec, and Tourism Department you have to meet. His name's Jeff Warren, and he's a turf manager, and I'm dubbing him as the Grass King. Take a look.
Hi everyone, I'm Jeff Warren, and I'm the turf manager with the City of Chesapeake. I'm also in charge of Athletic Maintenance Division in Parks and Recreation and Tourism. We're here today at beautiful Deep Creek Park. This summer I've been concentrating on the turf here at Deep Creek, at City Park, at Centerville, and Western Branch Park. And what we've done this summer is we have aerified the fields, we have top dressed, we have getting rid of the broadleafs and grassy weeds. This is awesome, I love it. Here we are on a Bermuda grass field. We've made 2 passes with the aerator. We're pulling up cores. We're poking holes about a 2-inch by 4-inch gap, which is pretty good. We're going down about 4 inches. I'd like to get down a little bit more than that, but hey, the Bermuda grass loves it. It eats it up. Isn't this beautiful? Woo! I love it. We have a good crew here. We have about 11 people, and we take pride in what we do. We love what we do. We miss you guys. I am Parks and Recreation.
Thank you so much to Jeff. We love that passion. He's really not alone. We have so many employees here at the city who are just so passionate about their jobs, and it might sound like a simple job, turf management, or the men and women who collect our garbage or pave our streets. It's the jobs that you often forget about, and yet they are so passionate about it. Jeff, thank you to you. We're so glad to have you on our team. Now let's check in with our friends at the Chesapeake Environmental Improvement Council for the latest environmental tip.
Hi, I'm Tabitha, a volunteer with the Chesapeake Environmental Improvement Council with July's Environmental Tip. Practice your 4 R's. Reduce, reuse, recycle, and refuse. Just say no thank you to single-use items like straws, utensils, plastic bags, and receipts.
For more tips and for ways to get involved in community environmental programs, visit cityofchesapeake.net/CEIC. The Chesapeake Television started a unique partnership with the police department last year when we dove into some unsolved homicides in the city. We started a show called Cold Case Homicides that really worked to bring some new light to these cases that had been dormant for some time. The latest episode of Cold Case Homicide is out. You can find the entire backlog of episodes at youtube.com/Chesapeake Television. And we're going to play the latest episode for you right here. So I will say goodbye to you now. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay healthy, and we'll see you next week.
This homicide occurred on December 15th, 1966. This is actually the oldest cold case on the books for the city of Chesapeake. The victim was John Lee Pope, who's a 17-year-old male that was found in a field. His head had been smashed and he had been stabbed. At the time, it was the 1800 block of Wellington Avenue. That section of Wellington Avenue doesn't exist anymore, but the field is still there behind Burton Lumber. There were tire tracks in the field and a knife. The murder weapon was laying underneath of him. But other than that, there was nothing found in the scene. John Lee Pope was found by 3 juveniles who were walking. I think they were collecting firewood and going fishing. They found him. They went back to their house in Norfolk. The police came to their house, and the juveniles led the police to where they found Mr. Pope's body. The last time the victim was seen alive was on the same day, December 15th, 1966, by his mother and father. He lived with them on Campbellsdale Road in Norfolk. The challenges for this case are the fact that it's a very old homicide case. Everybody that's involved in this case has either lost contact or died themselves. Officers, investigators, the family members of the deceased, they've all passed away, and it makes it very hard to follow up on this kind of case. This case doesn't have witnesses, and there's no suspects that were ever developed. And that makes solving this case at this point very challenging. However, if somebody possibly has heard anything about this case, we can take any tips that somebody might be able to provide to us and use those to investigate, to further investigate the case.
The leading cause of kitchen fires is unattended cooking.
Always stand by your pan.
Keep anything flammable like oven mitts or wooden utensils away from the stovetop at all times.
Wear short or tight-fitted sleeves to avoid loose clothing catching fire.
If a fire does start and you can't get it under control, get out and call 911.
Stand by your pan.
It's hurricane season. Do you know your evacuation zone? Visit knowyourzoneva.org and click on Find Your Zone. Just enter your address and the map will zoom to your location. Know where you are so you know when to go. Find your zone today at knowyourzoneva.org.
Mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's at 58 years old.
This disease just ravages.
Contact Bright Focus and learn more.